Hi, welcome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll just start in a couple of minutes. But we're going to put, before we start, we're just going to put a poll on your screen. And if you can fill that out and let us know a little bit more about yourself, that'd be great. Hi, everyone. We'll just get started in a couple of minutes. And in the meantime, if you could fill out the poll on your screen, that would be great. Welcome, everyone. If you could fill out the poll on your screen, and we'll get started in about 15 seconds. So glad y'all are here. All right, so we will close the poll just so we can get started on time. All right. So thanks for joining us today. We are really excited that you're here. This is our first ever ISPCAN Next Ask Me Anything webinar, actually our first ever ISPCAN Next event. So we're really excited you're here. So it looks like most of the folks here on the call so far are from Europe and Central Asia, South Asia, and North America. Look like they have an equal representation, and East Asia and the Pacific and Middle East and North Africa have about the same too. Looks like most of y'all have been working for 1 to 3 years. You're mostly researchers or academics. Just scrolling through the poll results here. Awesome, you're excited to hear from experienced professionals, get some mentorship and career advice, learn about global child protection practices. Awesome. And a little over half are not members. So great. We're so excited to have you all here. So we're going to get started. Close a couple things. All right. I'll pass it over to Christina.
Hello. So, as Liz said, it is just wonderful to see some diversity in our audience today from our poll results. So, now is a wee chance to also introduce yourself more personally to each other. And you can do that by popping in the chat and telling us your name, maybe where you're joining from, and what kind of work you do. And you can get a bonus point if you can add one word that will describe how you are feeling today. So, just go ahead and do that now. And yeah, see if you have any colleagues or anyone that you might already know in the chat.
Great. So a quick overview of today's webinar. We'll introduce the moderators, which you'll see is a surprise. We'll give an overview of what is ISPCAN Next. We'll introduce the experts to you. We'll open the floor up for the interactive Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up with some final reflections. So my name is Liz Perry. I work at Georgia State University. I'm one of the co-conveners of ISPCAN Next and one of the moderators for this session. And then I'm going to pass it over to the newly minted Dr. Christina Thurston, who just became a doctor on Friday. So you can all give her a little bit of encouragement in the chat. Off to you, Christina.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz. And my name is Christina. Oh, thank you. I can see the emojis there. Bless. So my name is Christina, and I'm a research fellow at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And I'm also a convener at ISPCAN Next. So it's lovely to virtually meet you all. And thank you for your kind wishes. Here, I'm just going to take you through a little bit about the ISPCAN Next webpage. So here you can see if you want to join the page, this is kind of what it's going to look like. So you have some rationale and some motivation as to why you might want to join ISPCAN Next here. Maybe like career advancement and global connections. You can also see our upcoming events here if you go onto our ISPCAN Next page, like the inaugural Ask Me Anything, which we're at today, and some writing groups, which we will tell you about at the end of this webinar, and also some ISPCAN Next events coming up at Congress, which we really hope to see you at in person in Vilnius. If you like, you can also read a little bit more about Liz and I through our bios there. And if you are interested, then you can click Join the Movement today, and that's going to take you to our member portal here. So at the top, I hope you can see this, but you can click on discussions, and that's going to take you to some threads where you can actively engage with other members and other early career professionals. So you can see Liz has kicked this off by asking a kind of general opener, where do you live, a fun fact about you, and you can see here we've already got some replies. So yeah, I can see that Jane has popped the link in that. So if you're a member of ISPCAN, you can already go onto this, and if not, then we would love to tell you how to get involved after the Ask Me Anything.
Great. So Christina just showed you a little bit where you can find more information about ISPCAN Next, but I just want to highlight here that we hope this group becomes a welcoming space where early career professionals from around the world can connect, learn from each other, and grow together. And our goal is to build a supportive, inclusive, and collaborative global community where we're all working toward protecting children globally in each of our disciplines. And we want this group to be a collective ours because it will only grow stronger with each of you in it.
So I am now going to read some of the bios for each of our panelists and as well Liz, and just get to know them a little bit better. So first we're going to start with Pragati Tamala, who's a senior level public health expert and has been the CEO of ISPCAN since 2016. She oversees all the program development, communication, strategic planning, and the operational and financial aspects of the organization. With a background in public health, she has over 20 years of experience designing, developing, and managing public health programs at the state, national, and global levels. Pragati has led ISPCAN through business model changes, launching a new practice-based journal, and making major changes to ISPCAN International Congress programs. She has developed global public health campaigns and has overseen the development of advanced professional training and cutting-edge educational opportunities for ISPCAN members and partners.
And next we have John Fluke, and John is the Associate Director for Systems Research and Evaluation at the Kemp Center and a professor in pediatrics at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. John's research is focused on child protection decision-making and child maltreatment epidemiology. He is known internationally for his innovative and informative research and evaluation work in the areas of child welfare administrative data analysis, workload and costing, child welfare workforce intervention studies, and performance and outcome measurement for children and family services. John has been a PI or key staff on projects funded by the U.S. Health and Human Services Children's Bureau and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, among other federal and state agencies and foundations.
So up next, we have Diane Gordon Harrison, who has served as Jamaica's children's advocate since January 2012 and was appointed as Jamaica's first national rapporteur on trafficking in persons in 2015, the first such role in the Latin American and Caribbean region. An experienced attorney at law with over 20 years at the public bar, she has previously served as Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions. Known widely for her advocacy, she champions victim-centered, rights-based protection for children and vulnerable groups and emphasizes accountability for human rights violations. Mrs. Gordon Harrison is also certified by Geneva-based Justice Rapid Response as a global expert on international criminal law, and she specializes in crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Next, we have Miriam Asani. Miriam is an internationally recognized expert in child protection and safeguarding with an international child rights background with over 15 years of experience. She was recently appointed as the ambassador for the AI Council in the UAE, and that's a tech company. And she has been working with global organizations across law enforcement, health, education, policy, social institutions, and international development. Her extensive work has involved helping high-level institutions assess, design, and implement robust international child rights frameworks, ensuring that child's rights are respected and upheld in various settings. As a trusted trusted international advisor and a board member of ISPCAN, Miriam continues to play a pivotal role in advancing or advocating for the highest standards of child protection and safeguarding, both in the physical world and in the increasingly complex digital landscape.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Kevin Lawler, who's a psychology lecturer and has held numerous head of department and head of school roles at Technological University Dublin. His research is primarily focused on child abuse and neglect since his doctoral studies on the victimization of street children in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in the early 90s. He's published a number of reviews on aspects of child abuse in sub-Saharan Africa and in Europe. He's a member of the editorial boards of Child Abuse and Neglect, the International Journal, and Children, Youth and Environments. He's a former editor of the Irish Journal of Applied Social Studies and is a member of the Research Ethics Committee of the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, the NSPCC, here in the UK. He is also past chair of ISPCAN Board of Directors. So wrapping that up, we have 5 amazing panelists here today and a big thank you for them joining. So we're going to take down this PowerPoint for just a few moments to give the panelists an opportunity to share something from their career journey on camera and microphone that perhaps we wouldn't know from their bio. So I'm going to just hand over to them now.
Pragati, do you want to jump in first?
Sure. Great to be here today. And it's nice to be able to share a little bit from our personal lives as well as our professional lives today. And we hope that we can encourage all of you who are starting out in your career or early in your career to remember that it's not always a straight path for everyone that looks the same. So for me, something interesting you may not know is that I took 10 years off and did not work at all. In between graduating and my second job. I have 3 beautiful children, and to raise my 3 young daughters, I ended up taking 10 years off and came back to work after that big hiatus. And so it's possible to do it your way and still end up where you want to end up. So that's my little tidbit. I pass it to Miriam.
Hi, everyone, and thank you again to ISPCAN team for having me. Something that wasn't in my bio, my first degree was business management, and I specialized as a HR. I graduated as a human resource person, and I always had a dream to work for the children. I don't know why, this was always in my head. Since I was a teenager, I wanted to do things for children, help children. And my dream was that I will work in an organization, make lots of money, open a charity, then help children. But then I started working as a HR assistant as my first job in a charity called Every Child, which many of you maybe heard, in the UK. That was 15 years ago and 16 years ago. And at that time, when I started working, I was like, so I don't have to be a millionaire to help children. I can actually work in child protection. I can learn about child protection and start doing the work. So there was some trainings within the organization where I started taking, and then instead of doing an MBA, which I wanted to open a corporate business and make lots of money, I went and did international child rights. And it was the best choice I have ever made in my life.
Thanks, Miriam. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, it's great to be here, and thanks a lot to Liz and Christina for all the work that you did to organize this session. My career path has been fairly consistent. I've been a researcher in child protection, child welfare, public health for over 40 years, but it wasn't necessarily clear that that was what was going to happen at all when I first started out. I had a master's degree and really wasn't sure after having had an experience of planning to get a PhD in anthropology about what I was going to do. And I ended up in a job that by luck happened to, put me square in the middle of what was going on with, the first national data collection program for child abuse and neglect in the United States. And was just really fortunate to have a mentor. Her name was Pat Sheen, who really was capable of doing almost anything, I think, and served as a great example for me in terms of centering my sense of my career and what I needed to be able to do to have a certain amount of success at it. But it definitely wasn't something that initially I thought was going to happen for me at all.
John, Diane, you wanna go next?
All right, so thanks again for organizing this, and it's great to be with young, fresh, energetic professionals. So like Pragathi, I think I'm a good example of maybe doing the impossible. So when persons tell you it can't be done, believe me, it can be done. So I have 4 kids, all under 18, and didn't take a break like Pragathi, but found a way to juggle being an attorney at law who really practiced in criminal law for the first part of my career and financial crimes, and then making a seismic shift into children's rights. In terms of how I got here, I think children's rights found me. As a part of my criminal practice, I did represent a lot of children who had been the victims of serious sexual abuse, and in some instances had been murder victims. And there was a kind of parallel shift that had me not only looking at children who have to face the court for, in a multiple context world, but also at the forefront of looking at how our laws are made to protect children and advancing at the forefront the framework. So it was a little bit of an unpredictable path, I must say, but I'm happy based on where I am now, and certainly the contributions that this platform has afforded me to provide for children and vulnerable persons.
Kevin.
Thanks, Liz and Christina. Thanks for organizing this event. What you won't see on my biography is that I wasn't really supposed to be here initially. My father was in the military, my grandfather was in the military, and that was my route, that was my destiny. And as part of that, as children, we lived in the Middle East and saw interesting parts of the world. But the first time I applied, they wouldn't have me. And I went to university and I never looked back. So it's one of those sliding door type moments. And I suppose what put me on my trajectory was at the end of my degree, our professor in Cork wanted us to travel to Ethiopia to do PhD research. And that was not intimidating to me. That was exciting and in line with previous experiences. And I suppose then I studied the abuse of street children, and looking back, it was in my early 20s. It was a bit like a lightning bolt. It was just an eye opener as to just the appalling conditions that children were experiencing on the street in Addis, and still are, and in many other places as well. And when I first started to try and publish from my PhD, the ISPCAN journal, Child Abuse and Neglect, was the obvious destination, and it went from there.
That's awesome. Well, that was very, very cool. It sounds like you all have blazed your own path, have navigated different career stages at different times, and we're just really grateful to have you all here and for you all to share your experience with us. So I'm going to. All right, so we're going to move on. Before we get into the conversation, I just want to take a moment to talk about how we show up in the space together. What you see listed here on the slide are our shared group norms to help us create a space that feels safe, supportive, and real. So the first one, all curiosity welcome. So this isn't Ask Me Anything, and I really mean that, or we really mean that. Whether your question is about navigating your early career, handling tricky work dynamics, finding balance, or just figuring out things as a human, you're welcome to bring it up. If you're wondering about it, chances are someone else is too. The next one is respect and support. We've got people from all over the world on the webinar, different backgrounds and experiences. And that's what makes this conversation so rich. So let's make sure everyone feels heard and safe sharing. So please be kind, thoughtful, and supportive of everyone in the room. The third is step up and step back. So if you're usually the first person to speak up, that is awesome. We love that energy. Just keep an eye on the space that you're taking. And then if you're someone who tends to hang back, we really want to encourage you to step forward, and we want to hear from you today. The next one is thoughtful sharing. So this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the next webpage for members and non-members who couldn't make it live to still benefit from this conversation. So that said, I just want to encourage you to share your experience, but just do so in a way that feels comfortable for you, knowing it's on record. If you're bringing up a story, for example, especially when involving others, just try to keep it general or anonymized. We're all here to learn from each other, and we can do that while still being thoughtful about what and how we share. And then lastly, stay on topic. So as we dive into the questions, let's try to keep our focus on the early career experience in general, whether you're working in research, direct service, policy, or other areas of child protection. And this could include navigating your first professional role, applying for grants and fellowships, managing workloads, building networks, or balancing research and practice priorities. Personal questions are absolutely welcome, and especially when they connect to your development and well-being as an early career professional. We just want to keep the conversation relevant and supportive for everyone here. And we also know many of you have questions about the changing funding landscape, and our experts are happy to share what they know, but this space is quickly evolving, and so we just want to acknowledge there aren't clear answers yet or how to best navigate the current situation. And so we'll do our best to speak to that, and we want to be sure that we also offer, make space for the many other topics that y'all have at this stage.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. So there are a couple of ways of which you can engage with the panelists. So perhaps you want to drop your questions into the Q&A function that Zoom has. So if you're unfamiliar with this, it's just at the bottom of your screen. If you kind of wiggle your mouse, you should find it just at the bottom of your screen there, Q&A. So that's how you can engage, kind of, if you're not fancying, come on camera and mic, and we will absolutely respect that. And that is still a fantastic way to engage. Or if you prefer, you can raise your hand and come in on mic and camera for a more personal experience, chatting with the experts. So once you're selected after raising your hand, one of our lovely tech support will request for you to unmute and turn on your camera. So you can either accept your microphone only, or you can accept your microphone and camera, or if you change your mind, you can also not do either. You know, that's also perfectly okay as well. And one other thing, please make sure you specify who the question is for. So just if you have a particular panelist in mind, and because the audience is rather large, just try and make your questions as concise as possible, if that's okay. Thank you. So first, as Liz had mentioned, a core theme in the pre-submitted questions centered around funding. So I guess to kick this off, Liz is going to maybe open with a question around that hopefully will capture some of the pre-submitted questions.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Christina. So this is for all of the panelists. So given the current environment with funding cuts and priority changes, especially in the US, what advice, if any, do you have for folks navigating the early career stages right now in this environment?
Who wants to take this? Let me start by just saying it has been a really tumultuous time. I don't know that funding has ever been easy in child protection. Quite frankly, it's an underfunded area. One thing I would suggest that people do is definitely continue to build relationships, because funding, a lot of times, regardless of whether you work in a nonprofit sector like I do, or in research, maybe some of my colleagues can speak to some of the other sectors, but funding usually starts with relationships that you build with people or other organizations. So in this moment, branch out, try to make as many connections as you can, attend as many events as you can, where you might meet interesting new people and new partners from other parts of your world. Even in your professional life, I think there's nothing wrong with speaking to your personal connections to tap on who you know and who knows who. Sometimes it's like my husband's best friend who happens to work in a company that has a corporate social responsibility fund. You know, you just never know. So don't be shy about branching out and talking about what you do, and make those connections. That might be interesting new funding that opens up through that.
Maybe I'll jump in as a follow-on, Pragati. And I suppose I think it was Winston Churchill who said, keep calm and carry on. So the first thing I'd say is don't panic. These things have happened before and they'll happen again. Funding in our field is cyclical. It's not permanent. And depending on each country, I'd say everyone on this call lives in a country that has been through an absolute devastating financial crash, where everything was put on hold. PhD scholarships, travel to conferences. I remember our crash where the IMF came to Ireland and took over running the country. We weren't allowed to have coffee at staff meetings at that time. But things change and things move on and things improve.
If we could jump in as well with my 2 bits. Don't be discouraged if you hear the word no, or if you hear not now, or if you hear perhaps. It's about, just recalibrating and just going again, because no may come from Corporation X in September, but that no could be a yes next year, February. So don't be afraid to renew the connection, go back again to see if things have changed, and perhaps retweak your approach, because sometimes it's how the material is presented. Certainly within the Jamaican context, we have to make things very exciting, very visibly attractive, and connect with what the funder or the potential funder is interested in. So you speak their language and use it to get their attention, and then to present what it is you're asking for. So the biggest lesson for me is never be discouraged and just keep going. You never know when the same entity that has said no 10 times before says yes on the 11th try. And as Kevin and Pragati have said, it's a very dynamic world that really it takes a lot to capture the imagination of potential funders sometimes, because it's not a readily available win in terms of return on investment. That's as far as some of them see it. So we have to sell that. And I think an effective way sometimes of getting funding is if you can quantify in money terms what the cost will be if the investment doesn't come now, certainly in terms of, the outcome of these children who will still be in society. I think the dollar figure and the long-term impact is sometimes a good hook that you can hang your hat on to get the potential funder to listen.
Yes, definitely. It's same as what Diane was adding. I mean, it's very similar to applying for a job. You don't send the same CV to every company or to every organization. You have to really study which organization it is, who is it you are asking the money from or the funding from. So every time you have to reshape your application or relook at things and what is it that you're asking. And one thing that has been really helpful for me and my organization is to look at the impact. You know, maybe present the impact alongside your application. Say, if this goes ahead, this is the impact we will have in the lives of the children that we are trying to serve. So it's always important to show what is the end result, because I mean, I know of the funding difficulty at the moment. Yes, there is more spotlight, there isn't much funding available, but this has been always the case, as Pragati and Kevin say. It's just more spotlight and new people are hearing it more. But I would say for the past 15, 16 years that I've been working in this field, it has never been easy, especially child protection and child safeguarding, because it's not a direct contact with the children. It's something that we prevent child abuse from happening. It's not saying I'm going to feed this amount of children, I'm going to put them into school. It's more about the policies, it's about the prevention programs. So it has never been an attractive project or topic for the funders. So try to speak their language, I would say. It's like understanding psychology. What is it that they want? What is it that will make impact in them presenting it in their agenda, in their annual report, to say, look what we have achieved. You have to look at it from the business side of things as well, not just saying, I want to get this funding, I want to do this. And the minute you hear no, as Diane said, you stop trying. Always keep trying, and it would work.
I would just want to reemphasize the point that Pragati made about relationships. I think they're absolutely key to being successful at not only funding, but at your ability to advance any sort of career in this field. To be clear about that, I think we're all talking about the need to adapt, you know, that there's no, and most of our careers, as you've heard, we're not straightforward, not necessarily in a straight line. And so how you get to a place depends upon your, you know, your sense of what your passions are, what you want to pursue. And you should never really avoid thinking that those aren't important parts of what's driving you to and motivating you to make progress. And that's equally true in terms of seeking funding.
Thank you all. That was really encouraging to me, because sometimes it can, with a new news cycle, it can feel like it gets a little scarier and scarier. But it's great to remember that we've been here before. You all have navigated these things, and you can help us early career folks navigate these things, and we're all resilient and persistent. So thanks for sharing that. So we're gonna open the floor up to questions. Feel free to drop your question in the Q&A. I see a couple coming in the chat. Casa, we will talk about how to get more involved with ISPCAN at the end, so we'll save that for later. Thanks for that question. All right, so Kathleen in the Q&A is asking, what are the biggest gaps in child protection research or practice today, and where do you see the field going in the future? And that could be to anybody.
Shall I go then? Okay. So I think, just waiting, who is going first? I think there is a disconnect between the practice and the actual research. You know, this is one thing that we talked quite a lot in ISPCAN in Scotland as well. The challenge is those who are doing the research and they're doing the academy work, they are disconnected from the people who are doing the practice on the field. So not many are working together. And one of the biggest challenge has been always this, because people feel like they are working in silos and they need to do what they need to do in their agenda. But how we can overcome this challenge is by talking to others from the outside. I mean, sometimes we think we cannot understand each other because we all have a different deliverable items, different ways of working. But actually, when we get all in one room or through different collaboration and partnership, we can see that we face similar challenges. But when coming together, then those challenges can be easier to manage. The obstacles will be easier easier to manage when the practice and research is and the field work, people who are working on the field are connecting together. So I would say that's one of the things that comes to my head at the moment.
That's a great,
I have a lot. I think that, quite frankly, from all the public health issues, and I've worked on many, child protection hasn't been my only focus in my career. And I find that child protection is somewhat in its infancy when I compare it to other public health issues. The data is not always honest or correct, because governments don't report the correct data. So from every element of child protection, I feel like there's so many opportunities for improvement. Data collection, connecting practice to research, as Miriam said, connecting practice to research to policy, and actually changing systems is a huge gap that we've been working a lot on at ISPCAN with a few new initiatives we have. But yeah, I think that wherever you are focused in your career is an important one, because there's so many things that we have yet to fully understand in terms of effective interventions, best practices, even how law works. Diane, I don't even know that courtrooms are fully equipped for children, to be child aware. There's so many places where we are behind, and why this is turning into an avalanche of a problem for our countries and world. But I'll let my other colleagues comment before I get very depressing, but there's a lot. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Let me put it that way.
Right. So the two big ticket items for me, and Pragati, you touched on one of them, is that our justice process really was created for adults, adult litigants, adult victims, adult accused persons. And so what continues to be a challenge is that when we have those kids who are brave enough and supported well enough to move forward with seeking to access justice in instances where they have been victimized, the system, it's not child-friendly justice, which gives them the opportunity to come forward with the best evidence so that their perpetrators can be held accountable. And likewise, for the kids who find themselves in conflict with the law, they're left to navigate a very cold and adult justice system. And so the system is still playing catch up with having child-appropriate protocols and frameworks in place to support justice for children based on their perspective. The other gap that I see as well is the disconnect between, yes, supporting the child and ensuring the interventions are there, and accountability frameworks. So in many instances, you will find that, for example, a child has been a victim and everybody, jumps in to support the medical response and the psychological response and the emotional support and all of that, which has to continue. But I think sometimes there is a kind of reluctance to explore with the child, how does that child want to feel that full circle justice has been achieved? Sometimes is a question asked, do you want to go forward with trying to hold your perpetrator accountable and having the support systems continue to surround that child to have that ultimate end? Certainly, I've interacted with children who have said that, yes, they got all the counseling and all of that, and that was great, but they still feel cheated and they still feel very apprehensive because that perpetrator is out there somewhere, perhaps coming at them again at some, years to come, or really doing harm to other children because they failed in their bid to hold that person accountable and to have that person removed from society for the violation that was, acted out on that child. So those would be my two observations at this time in terms of the disconnect.
If we talk about the gaps in a geographical sense, what is very obvious when we look at the papers that are published in ISPCAN's journal, Child Abuse and Neglect, is that the overwhelming majority come from North America, Europe, Australia, China. So there are huge gaps about our knowledge or published scientific knowledge across lower middle income countries. So that is a significant gap. One of the steps ISPCAN, sorry, my room goes dark when people stop moving. Anyway, one of the initiatives we have in ISPCAN is our new journal, our open access child protection practice journal, where any author based in, I think, Pragati, it's something like 80 odd low and middle income countries will be able to publish their work with no fee, no charge, to begin to increase the output from low and middle income countries.
I would just want to comment on the idea that the research gaps are different depending upon where you're located and what the resources are that are available. In the North American context, I think, you know, the research gaps that we have primarily have to do with our underinvestment in both research, policy and practice and prevention. And that, you know, we have increasing amounts of evidence, for example, that income supports, healthcare supports, other types of broad societal benefits can have a significant impact on reducing child maltreatment. Whether that would be true in other places where those gaps may be already filled to some extent is very unclear. But I do think that that's an area that requires some significant attention from a research perspective. And then the other area that I think we need to begin to pay some attention to are issues that are related to climate change, and in particular issues that are tied to the resilience of our systems for prevention and intervention. You know, when you have even in the context of a high-income country, a massive fire that can disrupt social services, healthcare services, a range of different services that are needed in order to help keep children safe. And I don't think that we have a good sense of what either the societal costs of those types of events are, or any sense that we have systems that can be made more resilient to mitigate those kinds of concerns.
Thank you. Thank you all for your insights. It's really valuable. Yeah, people in the chat are also saying thank you. We have a question here from Larry, which Kevin has responded to. So I can read out the question, read out Kevin's response, and see if anyone else has got anything to add. So that was for all panelists. What is one of the biggest challenges, failures, or setbacks that you've had in your career, and how did you navigate it? So Kevin's response kind of pertains to kind of living with rejection, living with rejection of grant applications and journal submissions. We talk about the successes, but we can only have those when we've picked ourselves back up from the failures. And I think that would resonate with a lot of early career professionals. And I just wondered if any other panelists had something that they wanted to touch on when it comes to failures or setbacks.
I bet you none of us, we probably have a setback or a failure every week. I think that what you don't always see is where, we don't always share those. We share the awards we get and so I think it's really important that, and especially early on in your career, you take them so personally and your heart is so invested in what you're doing that you think that, this is unusual or this is just happening to you. But I would ask all my panelist friends up there, I'm sure all of you are nodding your heads, that we probably have setbacks every week, if not daily. So you just kind of grow thicker skin and you realize that it's not personal, and you have to pick yourself up and, you know, reinvent yourself or learn the lesson of what it is that you can take from that experience. No different than anything in your life personally. And it isn't a knock on you. Sometimes it's a matter of timing. All of us have had jobs we hated, bosses we've hated, coworker problems. You know, these are all very common issues. And I think you really have to learn how to make yourself better from each experience and what it is that is your personal strength that you can tap into and hold on to, and don't bend on that for anyone. So if it's not the right job, you know, you will find the right job. So I personally have changed careers, changed jobs many, many times. And I think you just have to have faith in yourself and know that you're going to, you know, survive that and come out better for it, because that's the attitude you take, that you have in control.
Yes, I agree with you, Pragati. I think one of the important things as well is the self-awareness, you know, to start early in our career, to be aware of what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. And sometimes, you know, the people, as you say, sometimes the managers or the directors, they have different agenda. Maybe they don't want you. I mean, unfortunately, this happens everywhere. And we know it's the reality and it's sad. But sometimes there's this competition aspect, or there's people who don't want you to succeed or don't want you to take the next level of job, and they want to hold you where you are. So I would say just be aware of what are your strengths and your surrounding. I mean, sometimes reassessing where you stand and what you are doing and who you are working with, it's an important matter. Sometimes we get so fixated in what we are doing and we think this is it. This is the only organization I can work in. This is the only thing I know. But when you start assessing yourself, there's so much more that you can tap on and you can recreate. I mean, I can give you an example. I moved to the Middle East 8 years ago, and my work was child safeguarding. This is what I was doing. This is what I studied. And I started Googling and I couldn't find much here, you know, because the child protection law was only established in 2016 and I exactly moved in 2017. So I went on LinkedIn, I contacted so many people and I said, can you tell me where to go, what to do, how to do it? And my husband was saying that maybe you should change career. I said, I'm not going to do that. This is what I love. This is what I want to do. This is what I live for. And the same people who told me that don't even try to talk about child protection in the Middle East, they are the same people that they are now willing to work with the company that I established. So don't give up, always find a way. And I'm so happy I didn't listen to the people who say to me, you can't talk about child protection, it's a taboo, child abuse, you cannot. UAE is doing great. It's been 8 years and I'm doing this working with this organization. And still to this day, I'm so proud that I did that. And I would say never, never give up on the people who say to you, don't do what you want to do. You always be a believer and be resilient in hearing negativity around you. Unfortunately, it exists. So that's from my experience.
Do any other panelists have any other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move to the next question. Awesome. So Michaela asked in the chat, my question's for Pragati and Miriam. There's a lot that is geared towards child protection at ISPCAN, but not so much on safeguarding. Why is that? And what do you see as the difference between child protection and safeguarding?
I'll start with that and then I'll hand it to Miriam. Yeah, we actually have just launched a working group on safeguarding. It is certainly something we feel strongly about. Unfortunately, we're only 4 staff members, so sometimes the number of things that we can take on and what we launch is more a function of that, not as much that it's not important. But I'd like Miriam to talk a little bit about the safeguarding working group that we have launched and where we're going with it. And we hope that it continues to grow onto some more initiatives.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, and thank you, Pragati, for saying about the working group. Yeah, safeguarding is within child protection. You know, it's maybe if it's not in our website saying safeguarding specifically, we always try to talk about it and try to highlight it in every event and every webinar. But yes, exactly that. And since I joined ISPCAN for the past 3 years, we have been working to find out what is the best way, because I mean, the field of safeguarding is my passion. This is what I do. And we launched last November on International Children's Day the Child Safeguarding Working Group, and we are working actually now on the agenda for the Lithuania Congress, where we're going to hold our first Child Safeguarding Working Group. And there is people in the working group at the moment, and I am myself and Rocco, who is my other colleague from ISPCAN board. We will be contacting members and also sharing the agenda of the pre-working group on safeguarding. And we hope to see you there, Michaela, because there will be a lot of content and a lot of people coming excited about the launch and having the first safeguarding. And if you have any other questions, I will be always happy to respond to through ISPCAN on safeguarding.
Yeah. And it's a key, I mean, it's the number one variable in prevention, right, is safeguarding. So it is always there, whether we use that term or not. And it will be safeguarding in all environments. So in school, in sports, in religious contexts, in social activities. Hopefully there are some common parameters that would apply to all of those settings and more. So yeah, please do join us if you can.
Awesome. Thank you both for your insights. We go next to a question from Katrin, and it is, how important are visiting research stays during a PhD? How do you approach institutions, and what do you actually do during a research stay? So Kevin has replied here saying, all networking opportunities are so valuable and essential. We all have to make an effort to get out and about and meet people. This is how trust gets built, and they will be your collaborators, friends of the future. So I think that's a fantastic response, Kevin, and I just wanted to open that up. I think that was to all panelists, just to see if anyone else had any insight into how you approach research institutions when you're looking at a visiting research stay for your PhD. Or Kevin, if you want to expand on your answer.
Just very briefly, I suppose it's the main message I would give today. ISPCAN is a networking society. It's a networking society of professionals. And not just researchers, academics, and child protection professionals, all businesses, all walks of life are built on personal relationships. You don't collaborate with people you don't know. You don't invite people to join you on a research project that you don't know. It really does come down to people knowing you and building up a trust that they feel that they can work with you. Now, the bad side of that is that takes a lot of time and effort and money to go to events, and you don't always know what's going to turn into something significant and what is not. But I think that's the most important lesson I learned from being an early career professional and engaging with ISPCAN was ISPCAN has the platforms and the networks and the mechanisms to enable that to happen, or to help for it to happen. It's all down to the individual, of course, themselves. But if there's a mechanism or an infrastructure that facilitates that, whether it's in virtual events or in conferences or other meetings, that's very valuable.
Moving on to the next question in the Q&A. Rajiv asked, and I think this is for any panelist who wants to pick this up. Impact funding and blended financing is becoming increasingly popular these days. What are areas where this option would be the scope for work on childcare and protection? And
I
sorry.
sorry, Liz, just to quickly, I think that the key thing is, if I'm understanding his question correctly, is that maybe all of us who are working in this field need to be capturing more this information and how much are things costing us and what is the impact in our research and practice. All of us need to be aware that this is, like Miriam spoke to earlier, we have to be paying attention to the money of what is the return on investment and the impact we're making with the work we do. So this is how you can be helping do this in your own projects and research, is to always be asking yourself that question, because the more we can prove that, the more we can demonstrate it, it will help in your own funding efforts to get funding and to show your impact. But yes, this is key for all of us to be paying attention to.
Rajiv, since you're typing in the chat, I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about what you mean by blended financing for those who don't know what that is. And I think we can move on to the, oh, great. Feel free to unmute yourself, Rajiv.
Rajiv, I think I unmuted you if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm also not much aware, but nowadays this is coming because in the fundraising, blended financing. So I have limited understanding, but what I have understood from it that blended financing means that it's a kind of result-based financing where one organization can commit some result and financing is done based on the result. So if result is not happening, then there will be no funding or there will be reduced funding. So it's a very kind of a business model. Means I don't know in the child care and protections sector how much this is happening, but this is in the enterprise development, livelihood and climate is being much talked about. So how we can figure out what's there. So I'm also not very sure, but this is getting, and as an organization, we are also now stepping our feet into that. So it's not much explored area, but in some of the conversations I have, and we have seen that there is a good funding possibilities and there are various other partners and donors, and government is in some countries like India, government is also very interested and some of the corporate philanthropies are also interested. So yeah, it's not much explored area, I would say, in the child care and protection.
Thanks for that explanation. Do any of the panelists have any other thoughts?
It's not an area that I have encountered blended financing. So I will leave it to my colleagues.
If I could just very briefly, so there has been very limited experience, certainly within my, practice, where I've had to do the result-based kind of impact financing. And essentially, one of the things that I think helps to keep it on track is a very clear roadmap from the outset as to what key targets are going to be, milestones that are going to be achieved that are time bound as well. So if you have a roadmap that's tied to time, then it allows you to measure incremental success towards achieving the ultimate, let's call it an ultimatum that you have to abide by with the funder. And once you're able to produce those interim reports that show what you have achieved in keeping with the roadmap that you would have developed from the outset, it gives the funder some kind of reassurance that, first of all, things are going in the right direction. And second of all, that you will actually attain the overall objective that was agreed to from the outset. And certainly this sometimes is tied to incremental funding, where you will get the money in tranches to achieve the particular end game. So my tip is clear roadmap, clear targets at different points in that roadmap that are tied to time-bound achievements.
Sounds like it would be helpful for all sorts of, like, for our work, just as what we're doing now, just to stay on track. Sorry, I think I heard you start to talk.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, from a research perspective, I mean, there are instances where you might have a foundation that might be interested in providing a certain amount of seed money to get a process underway. And then they might provide ongoing support in a situation where you were able to get a more substantial funding from a different grant provider. You know, so there are a variety of ways, I guess, that we've sort of seen something along the lines of blended funding. But I think it's very, very, you know, sort of specific to the project and to what the funding organizations will support. From a practice perspective, I have seen instances of blended funding models where efforts are made to sort of unsilo funds from different sources. So you might have healthcare funding sources combined with social service sources in specific communities where you can actually utilize the funds more flexibly in ways that, you know, the funding sources don't necessarily always support. But that, you know, requires cooperation from those funding agencies or waivers of some kind that would allow them to modify their policies, at least for those specific circumstances.
Thank you, John, for sharing. And you have thank yous in the chats as well, everyone. So yeah, is there anyone else that would like to comment on that, or shall we move on to the next question? Okay. So we have an anonymous question that is asking how you personally deal with the emotional distress that comes from working within this field. I guess the common field being kind of child protection and safeguarding. And yeah, so that's actually a fantastic question. And if I was an attendee, I would also have this question. So yeah, I'll open it up for any and all of you to comment on.
I think I'll go first. So, you know, I've always practiced what I describe as compartmentalization. And it's a realization that has me saying, if I carry the distress from one case to the other, it means that I'm going to that other case, not firing from my full deck of cards. And so to preserve the kind of energy and the focus that I take to the next matter, I really compartmentalize. And what that looks like is that when I'm dealing with case X, I'm all in. Everything is about case X. I'm fully focused on the results and the interventions for case X and the long goal. And then when I decide that, all right, I think I've taken this to a point, I'm not leaving it totally in terms of, I know I'll have to go back, but case Y has now arisen. And so it means I have to clear my mind of case X and go fully hard on case Y. The compartmentalization also extends towards the end of work and the beginning of family time and me time. So, you know, as I've said, I have 4 children. And so what I've practiced over the years is when the work day ends and I jump into mommy mode, where I'm doing homework, I'm building a volcano because we have a science project due, or I'm watching cartoons because that's what we're doing now. I'm all into that. And I don't think about work when I'm with my kids and they're, you know, alive and interacting and really having their afternoon. When they go to bed, however, sometimes to avoid a crisis the next day, I have to pick up back case X or case Y and then deal with that. But feeling energized because I would have gotten a good afternoon into the evening, into the night stretch, just loving on my kids and being a part of their world. So I tell persons a lot of times when they say, oh my goodness, you have 4 kids, how can you manage? And I'm like, those 4 kids are oftentimes my savior because when I get buried in their world, it re-energizes and takes the focus off, the emotionally draining and heavy work that we do. The other thing as well that's important is me time. Define what rejuvenates your soul, define what gives you joy, define what makes you feel like you can totally unplug and just live in the moment. And that may be hanging with friends, it may be a good glass of wine, it may be your perfect movie, it may be shopping, retail therapy, whatever it is. It could be gardening, it could be reading, whatever it is. Find that joy and never feel guilty for taking those moments because that's when you are replenishing yourself so that you can keep going.
I love it, Diane. I need some of that. I get asked this question all the time. They say to me, how come that you always smile when you're presenting such topic and you always like have this joy in showing that you're happy in your work? I was like, yes, it all goes back to the mental health. You need to be able to check in with yourself every day. How do you feel? I mean, what is it that, and I love your idea of having it all in different boxes and different tasks for each, because it makes sense. You can, as a mom, as a full-time worker and a family and work and having an organization, running an organization is not easy. And the me time is the crucial thing. I mean, I myself, I do pottery. I don't know if I have mentioned that anywhere. No, I don't think so. So I build things. I build things from clay. And for me, this is like my time. I just sit down and don't think about anything and just disconnect from my work, from all the stress around me. So being able to check in with yourself, like for your mental health, it's crucial, because if we can't do that, we cannot give out our energy and our care to others, to our children, and to the people who we are working with. So it's so important to have it as a fixed agenda item. Check in with yourself every now and then to see how you're doing, how you're feeling. Do you need help yourself? Because that's very important. Sometimes we think because we work in this field of work, we are expert in everything and we are perfect in everything. And actually, no, we are not. We also need help sometimes. And that's the reality of this field of work.
I'm going to reframe the question a little bit, maybe for some of the researchers that are in the audience, and reframe it because one of the things that as a researcher you often encounter, particularly if you're not necessarily somebody who's had much experience in actually providing services to children and families, that you don't necessarily have that same type of experience. You're not necessarily engaged from the standpoint of on a day-to-day basis, observing or experiencing the sorts of trauma that children and families experience. And so what I would say is that it's really important for a researcher to seek opportunities for that sort of exposure, not because it's going to be something that you want to develop trauma responses around, but because it's really important to understand those experiences to inform the work that you do. And without it, I think sometimes you end up looking at numbers and statistics, and we fail sometimes to interpret those data in ways that actually can ultimately benefit children and families. That it's important to maintain objectivity, but it's also important to engage in a mixed method study where you're going to interview children, or you're going to interview family members, or you're going to observe them in the contexts of the services that they're receiving, in order to be able to become a better researcher.
Yeah, I would just add to this also, along with what my colleagues have said, you definitely need to make time for yourself to let go of work when you can. I also sometimes use those moments of frustration to fuel me, to make me also not give up, to try harder, even on the things that I could walk away from. The moments where I think about the children who don't have the opportunities they should be having, who are in situations that they should not be. It makes me, I think, recommitted. So it's always how we turn that, right? And you can make you sad and down. Sometimes my mom even says to me, "My gosh, your job is so depressing." And I say, "You know what, Mom? No. I am on the front line of something where I'm making change happen in this world, and I'm proud of that. Like I would rather I am standing guard on this and taking the initiative to make a difference in this world than to have no one paying attention. So we see ourselves as part of the solution, right? So it can be empowering, and you definitely need to make the time to take care of yourself and enjoy your family, the things that make you happy. So you balance out your soul. But
I agree with all of that and all my colleagues. And all I would add is, and maybe it's a coping mechanism. I cannot engage with any art or literature or movie that has any kind of cruelty to children. I just can't watch it. And I think that's a good thing. And there's enough real misery in the world without consuming it through fiction and art. Maybe I'm restricting myself, but maybe that's more a defense mechanism than a coping mechanism. But that's one way I minimize how I consume some of this material.
So the next question, before I go on, I also have to be careful about what I consume. So anything with like death, or even if it's for adults, I have to keep it like Ted Lasso. All right. So Madison asked for all panelists, the current environment has many challenges, politically, financially, etc. In finding optimism or hope, how would you like to see our field change now in order to ultimately strengthen the movement to end violence against children? And we are running close to the end of our Q&A time, so maybe if just a couple of you answer this, and then we can try to get more of the questions answered.
I'll speak a bit from a global perspective because I've been working on this post Bogota with a lot of our partners. I think, Madison, one of the key things is, I know you from the work you do with Inspire, is it's really critical that we coordinate more with our partners and with each other. Organizations like ISPCAN, the whole point is that we want to look across sectors. We want people to collaborate more. And for our field to really change, even globally, our partners across the UN, our country partners in every country, we need to be doing more collaboratively. And I think also to bring together research, practice, and policy. So these are some of the, the two big things I'd like to see more continue to happen to advance child protection globally. These are critical now, more than ever, especially across sectors, because many times in countries, child protection is funded through one health sector, but they don't always coordinate across, the legal, education, economic, security sectors. So it's really important to see those things start to happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Pragati. Were you going to say something else?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Liz.
And then Nicole asks to all the panelists, how do you refine your own research or work focus over time and what factors influenced your decisions? And then there's a third question. How do you recommend early career researchers identify a unique niche within child protection that is both academically significant and practically relevant? It's a great question, Nicole.
This is a tough one because a lot of it is serendipity. And so you can't necessarily, you can't necessarily count on things emerging in the way that you would hope in order to be able to achieve what you're talking about or what you're asking about. But I would say that, good mentorship is really important. Having somebody who can, help guide you to think through what some of the important kinds of questions might be. I think another thing is just doing the work, understanding something well enough to be able to make a contribution to it takes time, and it takes a commitment over a period of time to develop that level of understanding. And then finally, I would say that you need to be on the lookout for opportunities. That if something appears to be an opportunity to advance what you're working on, you need to make sure that you're not ignoring it. So those would be the three pieces that I would say would be fairly important in terms of achieving that goal.
Thank you, John, for your final reflections there. Has anyone got anything else to add for that question? That was a really interesting one, and I guess, yeah, multifaceted.
Just echo the word serendipity that John mentioned. Nobody in their early career can know for sure, really, what they will be working on in 10 years' time, or 20 years' time, or 30 years' time. Doesn't work like that. That in my experience, it's a long and winding road, and way leads to way as well. So I don't think you should feel a pressure in your early years to have a 10-year plan. I don't think that's realistic. Things tend not to pan out like that. So don't beat yourself up when you're 25 because you don't have a plan for what you're going to be doing when you're 45. That's okay.
So
Yeah,
true.
if I could, sorry, go ahead, Pragati.
No, you go, Jan.
No, I was just saying that, as you were saying, Pragati, it's so true. I was nodding my head as Kevin spoke. And, I think just a couple of reminders as young professionals. First of all, grace to self, openness to growth and change, and a willingness to go with the flow. The ebbs and the tides will take you in directions that you can't even begin to conceptualize right now. But I think if you have the mindset of openness and the willingness to hold on to opportunities as they present themselves, and an intuitiveness to read the room, if you will, to see what are the practical realities in your area or broader and wider field that you can perhaps do some research in to bring clarity to. So I think openness and just being willing to reinvent the dream and the vision, depending on how the ebbs and flows take you, is how I'd advise. But lose the pressure in terms of having that, 10-year plan at this stage. Because many times we do that, commit it to paper, and then we feel as if we have to do this. And then we miss out on the practical realities before us as the ebbs and flow unfold.
Thank you. Thank you all for that. I think that was answered beautifully by all of you. I'm just checking the time that we have, if we have time to go to the final hand that is raised, if we want to. Yeah, will we try that? Just perhaps as the last Q&A? Yeah, awesome. So do we have
Wajahat has raised his hand. I've unmuted you if you'd like to speak.
Oh, perfect.
Hello, can you listen me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Yes, my name is Wajahat Ali. I'm a member of ISPCAN, and I would like to introduce myself. I'm not in the beginning of my career. I would say I am at the middle of my career. Started my career as a child protection professional in 2015. And I worked as a child protection professional activist with different national and international organizations, and as a consultant on different child protection projects. And I also worked in our national level institution, National Commission on Rights of Child, as a policy advisor, as well as focal person for National Commission on Rights of Child business with the Parliament. So I have good experience on child protection thematic areas. And my educational background is I did masters in computer science, and then I did law, and then specialization in human rights law, and diplomas in other disciplines.
Wajahat, sorry to interrupt. It's nice to see you. Can you ask your question quickly? We have only a few minutes in the session.
I want to pursue a PhD in child protection thematic areas. So can you please guide me? How can I proceed for the PhD? Or is there any option I can pursue? I can do a PhD from my home country. If someone could supervise me from the other countries, like in USA or European countries, any good supervisors, and I can do work from my home country. Thank you.
Maybe I could jump in on this one. I received many proposals to do PhDs. And it ties back to some of what we said earlier about networking, trust, and relationships. If I take on a PhD student, that's a 4-year commitment of my time. So this has to be a serious, dedicated person. And too often people send in blind, cold proposals. People I've never met, never heard of. Unless it's a funded, competitive process, it doesn't work like that. Well, certainly in the Irish and UK context, it works more on the basis of approaching a supervisor you know, a potential supervisor you know, somebody who knows your work, somebody who's collaborated with you before, so there's a trust there already. And it's very important to have an impressive, well-worked out proposal. Too often I get a one-pager saying, "Hi, I'd like to do a PhD with you." They haven't gone to the trouble of writing and framing a credible 4-year research plan. So there are many sources online that will help you, or help one to write a PhD proposal. And then I think it's about being just judicious about who you approach. Is it somebody you have a pre-existing relationship with, or a colleague who could give you a good reference? But I don't encourage anyone to send out cold proposals to 50 professors that they find online somewhere, because they won't have a good success rate.
All right, I think Christina, I think we're about at time. I wish we could have more time for questions, but Christina will take us away to the final takeaways.
Yeah, thank you. So before we move on to our final kind of takeaways, I just want to say a huge thank you to our incredible panelists and to everyone who's joined us as well. Thank you for your questions, your energy, and conversations like this do remind us that we are part of a global community. We're not alone. And and to remind us that this is a really intense field, and taking care of ourselves is also really important, so that we can't pour from an empty cup. So I would like to take this space to just ask the panelists a very brief closing remark that you might like to give the attendees to take away. And if we could just go around, I'll maybe start with Pragati, and if you could just pass off to each other and just go around everyone. Thank you.
I just want to wish all of our young career people all the best, and to remember to harness your strengths and stay resilient. Every no, every turn in any direction you can take as a positive and learn something, grow, and just remember you're not alone. Organizations like ISPCAN, we hope that you stay connected to people like us who can continue to help you and support you. We wish you all the very best. So thank you.
Thank you. Passing on to Kevin.
Sure. My main takeaway message is join ISPCAN if you're not a member already. And I mean that sincerely. It has been career shaping for me over more than 20 years now. It has opened doors and created opportunities I wouldn't otherwise have had. And also the fact that you have all turned up for this webinar means you're on the right road. Your instinct is to reach out and learn from other people. And that will stand to you. So keep that up and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Moving on to Diane.
All right. So again, I think you guys are on the right track for having just taken advantage of this webinar, this engagement. And I want to encourage you to keep networking, keep speaking to persons who you have no idea who they are, but you admire their work, or you want to integrate and collaborate with them, and just keep going. There are days when you feel very discouraged, days when you'll ask yourself, why am I doing this? Live those days through, remember self-care, regroup, and just keep going again. It gets better, and the reward is very satisfying. So just keep true to your passion, and the rewards will come.
Wonderful words. Thank you, Diane. Moving on to Mariam.
Thank you. So I would say, I mean, as a final message is the world needs your energy. You need to go out there and make some noise for the children who need it the most. And don't give up. Don't give up with 1 no or 2 no's or even 10 no's. There's always possibilities and opportunity out there, as much as there are children who needs your energy out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. And last but certainly not least, John.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just start with, the importance of recognizing that we're all human. And sometimes it's hard when you're starting out to realize that the people that you want to talk to, the people that you want to engage with, actually share much more of your passions and your desires than you might imagine. And that it's important to be able to be willing to engage with people, regardless of how you may initially feel, whatever insecurities you might have about engaging someone. We all want you to succeed, and it's just important to persist in that.
Thank you all so much. Those were great final thoughts and advice. So I'm going to wrap this up real quick. So just want to talk through about how to get involved with ISPCAN and ISPCAN Next. To be a member of ISPCAN Next, you need to join ISPCAN. And you can do that by following this QR code. We will drop a link in the chat, and then we'll also send the link in the follow-up email. So if you can't scan all his QR codes in the next 30 seconds, you'll get these links in the follow-up email. So choose a student or affiliate membership. And then once you're a member, you can access the member portal. And we have our own page, ISPCAN Next, on the member portal. So feel free to join that group. And Christina showed you what that looks like. And if you have any questions, you can always email us. We are hosting writing groups, and we have our first writing group starting in about 30 minutes. So if you want to join that, scan this QR code or go to the link in the chat that Holly and Jane are going to drop. Fill out that interest group, interest form, and I will send you a link to the calendar invite in the Zoom room. And then stay tuned for more. So we have a Lincoln strategy webinar in the works. So that will be coming in the next few months. We're planning an awesome pre-Congress workshop, a special lunch at the Congress, and you can follow us on social media. And then also in the follow-up email, you will be getting a link to complete a needs assessment, and we would love to hear from you. This will help us shape our activities for this year, and we're going to do this annually. And then just want to say thank you all for being here, and thank you to our amazing panelists. We're grateful, and we hope to see you at the next webinar and at the Congress.
And if I can just add also to spread the word about this group. If you have other colleagues or friends in your programs, in your educational programs that you think could value or benefit from this, please spread this so that we can get more people and more young people interested in child protection work and to join Next. So thank you, Liz and Christina, for being our leaders in this group. And we really appreciate all you've done for this and to launch this for ISPCAN.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
There's
Have a great
also,
day.
there's also a survey when you disconnect from Zoom, and you can send your contact information to Liz and Christina if you'd like to be contacted by them. So please take a moment to fill that out.
Perfect. Thanks, Jane. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Take care.